Welcome to the channel Techno Swamp. Okay. I'm actually an internet Shrek, and in short today will be another comparison of AMD and Intel, but not simple, but such that just put a like to pity. I have a computer Athlon X4840, 4 plus 8 GB DDR3 memory 1600 with normal timings, and a video card, killer any AMD Radeon card, GT1030 DDR5. And I exactly sat on it until I turned up a power supply for 15 bucks and a set for 1200 rubles on flea market. It included Pentium G4400, Asus H110MC and 4 GB of 2133 memory with classic timings. Why is it so cheap? I don't know. The only problem I found was that Windows 10 can't be installed. I decided to install the 7 and roll the official driver on the SATA controller. Stump and Athlon were similar in multi-threaded performance, so we will compare them in synthetics, video rendering, and games. The main differences between these stones: 4 cores at Athlon, or as fans of AMD FX will say, 2 dual-core processors under one cover, against 2 cores of a Stump, but quite fast, all the same Skylake, the actual architecture. In addition, the Stump has 3 MB of cache L3, and the Athlon cache L3 does not exist at all, but the cache L2 is 4 MB, against a pathetic 512 KB at the Stump. What does it matter if you have an L3 or not, if you have an L2 like a mouse should? And still Athlon supports AVX, that can be proudly to speak owners of Hyper Stump, which have AVX stolen. And of course the difference in RAM, DDR3 1600 vs DDR4 2133. I added another 8GB 2133 RAM to the Intel kit to create the same oblique 2-channel as the Athlon. I will not present you their records of gameplay because the computers are quite weak and they can be shaken even by the included torrent in the background, not that the record. Therefore, you will be presented with graphs that I drew as well as I could. Believe in them because I do not need to lie to you. I do not advertise or sell anything. Let's start with general education programs. CPU-Z. Athlon X4840 to 216 single thread, 704 multi-thread. Pentium G4400 to 394 single thread, 775 dual thread. The difference of 10% for such sluggish stones is insignificant. IETA 64. CPU Queen 18000 for AMD, 15 for Intel. Now the difference is in the direction of Athlon and by as much as 20%. Memory test. Almost 18 gigs to read from AMD, 10 to write, latency 96 nanoseconds. For the Stump, almost 25 gig for reading and writing, a delay of 66 nanoseconds. Intel is more responsive and cheerful in Windows, but this is subjective. There are lots of ways to use Windows. Place your bets on who will win in the render and who will win in the games. The absolute winner will move to the building, the loser will lie in a box. But of course I already have the answers for you. Let's start with the video rendering. Sony Vega 16, an hour-long video clip, to be more precise, an hour and 5 seconds, my flex under Zakomskik Voss. Full HD 60 FPS. Athlon will fight together in 1030 against the Stump and its HD 510 extension. There were results that shocked me. I assumed that Pentium would win this race, but not that much. Athlon rendered the video for almost 4 hours, the video card was not loaded above 10%. Lags during the preview. In general, it is extremely problematic to create large videos. For reference, Without using GT1030, Athlone would have managed this video in about 12 hours. And Intel's pruning managed to render the same video in an hour and 14 minutes. That is, under certain conditions, it would be able to handle real-time visualization with a full HD 60 fps video, not to mention 30 fps or HD resolution. The built-in was loaded up to half in places. Excellent performance. I think the computer on the Pentium quite suits me for the speed of video rendering. His test with 1030 is useless, the best result cannot be achieved. In this category, Intel wins AMD with a full spread. There will be no more work programs because I don't like it. And I would already like to start as Steve Jobs to praise his new MacBook on Core i3 for $1,500 and say that it is better than a computer on the Ryzen 3700X, but the category of games put everything in place. Let's go from the best results to the worst. It was hard not to hit in GT 1030, but I was able to do it. So, the graphics settings are the absolute minimum, and the resolutions will vary. Let's see if these stones can pay taxes. Kiki, I wanted to say whether these stones can somehow run the games that I will make them run. Game for checking stability: Assassin's Creed Rogue, HD resolution. It would seem that the vertical was removed, but it still exists. The system on Intel turns out to be slightly better at the minimum FPS. At the same time, the card is loaded by a maximum of 30%, and the processors themselves, less than 70%. Project Cars 2. Resolution 1024 by 768. Here is a slight advantage of Intel on FPS, but both processors on minimum settings give a good result. With the complexity of the game mechanics, the FPS may drop to 30, but it will remain stable. A game in which I didn't believe in the stump at all, Metro Exodus. Resolution 800x600, DirectX 11. RTX is naturally enabled. And here we get a significant difference in performance between processors. Intel is ahead, and not just in price. But both computers freeze all the time, but you can play on both, though without much pleasure. A surprise toy, thanks to the incentive Detroit Become Human. 1024 by 768, the resolution scale of 0.7. So much for interactive movies. Athlone is not without difficulties, and you can play it, and the game does not look very bad even in this resolution, because there is sharpness and all that. But on Pentium, Connor can't even get out of the elevator, the game freezes irrevocably, without the help of the task manager cannot do. The future on Intel processors now seems hazy. I thought it was because of the API Vulkan, but the next game showed that the stump is simply not capable of playing games. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. A resolution of 1024 by 768. AMD can still, 45 FPS on average with strong freezes to almost 0 frames, in full HR works a little more stable, but the frame rate is below 30. Playable. Yes, in principle, it is playable. But the Pentium hung up several times while loading the game, but I was not confused. But then the screensaver went and for the first time in my life I saw a 5-digit frame time. At the same time, the box cooler was already reaching supersonic speed. According to the results of all tests, the AMD processor remains alive in the case, but the Intel's piece of oak bark is in the box. But sometimes video renderers will fall on it. I play games more often than I make videos. About the socket 1151 upgrade. Mother on the bus to drive is not able, there is weak power supply system, and processors on 1151 are rather hot. Which option would fit there perfectly in performance and not burn out? Optimal options here: i7 8700T, i5 9600T, i5 9400F, or their counterparts with less normal frequencies. But the price says goodbye to such ideas. However, time goes on and prices change, but for now the stump will lie in the box. Thank you all for watching. That you get high and do it.